Hey, it's Lisa. I'm on a mission to help people stop budgeting, build wealth, and spend guilt-free. Today, I'm going to share with you all of the details of my family of four's dream vacation to Alaska. I'm not here to tell you about all the ways you're going to save money, but you'll definitely find out what this trip cost and how you can make it happen yourself. So this summer, my family and I have two boys, 12 and 15, and my husband went to Alaska. We took an Alaskan cruise on Celebrity Cruises. Shout out, you guys are awesome. We had an amazing time. I want to talk about the planning process financially and otherwise for this cruise. Last summer, we came home from Hawaii and we started thinking about this vacation, what was going to be next. We started planning that far ahead, and I recommend that if you have a dream vacation that you know you want to take, you definitely want to spend enough time planning ahead, not just time-wise, but financially. So we realized in January, shout out to my assistant Ashley, she was already researching cruises. We found the cruise that we wanted and it was on sale. We could book one cruise and get the second one 75% off. So we did save some money there. And in total, we knew that the cruise for the four of us was going to cost $7,500. It was $5,000 for one room, half off the second room of $2,500. So my husband and I were going to have a room together and my boys would have a room together. That was super important for us. Definitely don't want to go cheap on that, FYI. If you're going to take kids on a cruise, you want to have your own space, and it's important that they do too. So that's tip number one. Once we realized and knew how much the cruise was actually going to cost, then we had to do some research around what were the additional costs that went into the cruise. First, we had to figure out how we were going to pay for that. And one thing that we do as a family is we always set aside money every single month for different purposes. That's something that I teach in my Stop Budgeting course and something that you can learn to do as well as you are saving intentionally for different things. But you know, saving for travel in my family is a must. It's a non-negotiable. So we have money set aside in different accounts for different things. The second thing I did was I looked at my credit availability to be able to know that I could afford to pay for the actual cruise, because you've got to pay in full for the cruise when you book it. And they give you a certain number of months to make sure that it's paid before you depart, or embark, I think is the word that they use. So for us, we had to make sure we were leaving in June and our trip had to be paid for in full by March. So that gave us a little window to get it paid, but we were able to put that on a 0% credit card. And that gave us a little time to pay off with regular cash flow in the month to get some of that paid off. But then also we were able to move money in savings and it wasn't an emergency to do it. So that was booked. And then it was time for us to get planning on what we were going to do in the different places that we were stopping in Alaska. Fair warning, Alaskan cruises are not cheap. If you're looking to do a cheap cruise, go to Mexico. Alaska, the trip itself was $7,500. And then on top of that, we had excursions and different things that I'm going to get into next. So here's all the fun stuff then. You're not just on a cruise, you get off the cruise. And for us, we did it's actually a 4-part series to the cruise. The first was the Hubbard Glacier, which we didn't get off at. So that was our first stop. And then we had 3 other cities that we stopped at: Juneau, Ketchikan, and Sitka. And so we got to start thinking about the things that we'd want to do while we were on land in Alaska. But before we booked those excursions, and I do recommend that you book those excursions early, they sell out. So we found out too late because I'm not that big of a planner. Although I try to plan so much, we were scrambling kind of close to the end of the cruise before the cruise left to get those things booked. So do that early, and I'm going to share with you how much those things cost. We had to make sure that we were planning for airfare there. And we decided to go straight into Vancouver from Las Vegas, and those flights on the way there and back cost us about $1,400 a piece for 4 of us to fly there and back. So you want to know that too. You've got your airfare or travel costs, you've got the cruise costs, and you've also got getting there, getting home, and anything that you might want to do along the way. We spent 2 days in Vancouver, and I'll share what that cost us as a family as well. Now, once you have your travel arrangements taken care of, so for us, we had the cruise and we had our flights planned, and we're already in at $10,000 for the whole trip. Some of you are like, holy cow, that's pretty steep. And it didn't stop there. I'm so grateful for the different systems that I teach and the different ways that in my household we're able to manage money, because I could have let that $10,000 price point stop me from taking a dream trip with my family. But I didn't because I had money set aside and I knew how that money was going to get, or, when we did charge to a 0% credit card, how that stuff was going to get paid off. And I'm the money worrier in my family. And even for me, it made it a whole lot less stressful. And when push came to shove, I was like, we're going because we said as a family, this is our highest priority this year. And we made it happen. So for the cruise and for the flights, we're already in at $10,000. And then, of course, we're thinking about excursions and all the other things that are going to come next. And you might be thinking that too. Before we get to excursions, I want to talk about the actual costs on the cruise. We were just talking about this in the studio before we jumped on to film this. And there are costs. Don't be fooled by the price point of the cruise. There are other things that go into being on the cruise that are not included in the actual cruise price. So a few things that are included in the cruise price, one of those things is that almost 24 hours, actually 24 hours, you can get food and drink on the ship from select places. So we had the Ocean View Cafe at the on the Celebrity ship, which was amazing. Again, shout out to Celebrity. And my boys could eat 24 hours a day on the ship and it wasn't an additional cost. But there is gratuity for everything that you do on the ship. They add gratuity on every single day. And that is not included in the cost of the cruise. Other things that you don't pay for, we didn't have to pay to use the gym or the pool or certain amenities. So don't worry that if you don't have a ton extra money, you'll be able to really enjoy yourself on the ship. But for us, we were like, we want to be able to take full advantage of this dream vacation and do everything that's available to us. We got ship credit, they call it cruise credit, at $250 per room. So that was $500. My husband and I knew that we wanted to take advantage of the spa that was on the ship. And so we booked a couples massage. Grand total for the massage was $520. We used some of our cruise credit to book it, so it ended up being a little less than $300 for the two of us to do a massage the second day of the cruise, but it was such a great way for us to start the vacation, to be able to let the boys go have fun, and then we were able to have a massage and not worry about that extra cost. So that's something that you might want to think about as well. Look at all the things that you can do on the cruise and make sure that you plan accordingly financially, because you don't want to not be able to do certain things just because you feel like you're on a budget. Remember, I'm not the budget coach. I'm not going to teach you how to take a cruise on a budget. I want to give you the full layout, and so you can set up expectations and game plans so you can do it the way that we did it, which was we went all out. So we had some food taken care of, but there were some restaurants on the ship also that were extra. And also based on the different drink packages that are available, you definitely want to get a drink package. My husband definitely wanted to make sure he got the premium drink package with the premium drinks. If you love the mojitos and the different coastal island kind of drinks, or even if you just like your regular vodka soda, make sure that you choose the right drink package for you, because based on those drink packages, like for me, I got the classic because I'm cheaper than my husband. I got the classic drink package, and that was a little less, but also I was limited to certain drinks that I could have on the cruise as a part of that package. My husband was able to get any drink that was a part of the cruise at no additional cost, but those are pretty hefty. So we had the classic, I'm looking at my spreadsheet here, the classic beverage package, which was $600 for the entire week on the cruise. My husband got the premium package, which we did book on the cruise. That first day, they do deals, FYI. So if you don't book it before you go on the cruise, you can book it when you get there. And they gave us a deal on that first day. They were willing and dealing us the whole time, which I appreciated. And then they were able to bonus the kids a drink package. So they have a 0 proof drink package for the kids. Just so you know, even the waters, like the bottled waters, they'll charge you for if you don't have a drink package. And it really adds up. It really does make sense to get a drink package at the end of the day. You're probably looking at this price point so far. We've got flights. I'm going to do a whole summary of this at the end of this video, but we've got flights, we've got the cruise, we've got the drink packages. We're not even in to the excursions, and we're already in at $11,650. Just, things for you to be thinking about, like how can we afford our dream vacation? It adds up. let's get to the excursions. So like I said, don't do what I did. Don't wait until you're like 3 weeks away from leaving on your cruise to book your excursions. If you have an idea of the non-negotiable things that you want to do, especially in Alaska, like for my husband, it was whale watching, make sure you book that stuff early so it doesn't sell out. A couple of things to be mindful about that. With the cruise line, with Celebrity Cruises, we could book through the cruise and get a discount on those different excursions. So you get off the boat like everybody, with everybody, and you go off to your excursions. They make it super easy to find where you need to go, and they are a blast. For the whale watching, it was already sold out because I waited too long. But I was able to find one through Viator. That is another website that I love to go through. When we went to Hawaii, we also did a cruise through Viator. I highly recommend that if you find yourself in the same situation. It's all good. Our whale watching tour, which also included a glacier tour of the Mendenhall Glacier in Juneau, Alaska, ended up being $800 for the four of us. As a money coach, what you'll learn about me is that I'm not a to the penny kind of person. So these numbers are a rounded number. If you want to know the exact number, send me an email. I'll send them to you. But this gives you a really good ballpark. And I'm not a penny pincher. So I just am giving you these round numbers so that you can work with them. But $800, I think it ended up being $789, but I always round up. Then we did as an excursion in Ketchikan, and oh my gosh, this was amazing. If you go to Ketchikan, I highly recommend this eco tour. We were on an eco boat that floats about 3 inches, I think. Oh no, it was a couple feet off the ground. And so we all got in this boat. We, got in this, it had this big air van. So for me, that was really cool because we knew that we weren't also adding additional resources into the ocean. We were being eco-friendly, and they took us off and we went to an island. At that island, we were able to firsthand see bald eagles and their babies eat in front of us. And they were very sensitive to it. They had fish that they threw out. We weren't touching them or anything. They were being very sensitive to the environment. But that eco cruise was so fun because we felt like we were on the water so low, not in a typical kind of boat, but then going off to the island and seeing firsthand bald eagles in their natural environment. It was really, really cool. I highly recommend that tour, and that cost us about $600 for the four of us. So you can start to see how these trips add up. And again, I'm not here to tell you how to penny pinch on this. I'm here to be honest and real with you about what these things cost, what dream vacations really cost. And anybody can make these things happen as long as you plan forward. This is what I teach in my world, how you can move money in a certain direction toward travel. I call it saving to spend. And when you're doing that, these things are totally possible for you. You just get to decide how much you want to spend. I was having coffee with my friend Gail yesterday, and she's like, there's no way I'd spend $20,000 on a trip. We did, and I don't regret it at all. Okay, so that's our excursions. So flights, excursions, cruise, drink packages, and then also we went to a couple of restaurants that were not included on the cruise package, and all in, we were at $13,350. And we flew, we were going to fly in. I'll talk about my snafu, my travel snafu. These things happen too. Financially, you got to prepare for them. But we planned on flying into Vancouver, British Columbia, because my boys had never seen Vancouver, and I absolutely love the city. So on the way there, and I do recommend you fly in a day before your cruise. Take my story as an example of why. I'll share that with you next. But we wanted to spend the whole day in Vancouver, cruising the city, enjoying the beautiful city. And then on the way home, we also did that. So we needed to be able to spend a night in Vancouver, and there was a hotel cost and travel cost with that. Same thing on the back end of the cruise. We got a hotel, and we also needed to make sure that we had travel plans and food plans and activities planned while we were in Vancouver. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears. But just to recap, our total costs for the cruise with dinner, with drinks, with excursions for just the cruise itself, not including any keepsakes or souvenirs, those kinds of things. Oh, and also in Sitka, we ended up walking. Sitka's a really small town, but we ended up walking to the nature reserve. We didn't do an excursion in Sitka. We could have, but we just chose not to. And that was still about $150 for the day to get into the nature reserve, to see the bald eagles. The Rapture Center is where we went. And we're at $13,500. Add in the day in Sitka, we're at $13,500. That was the total cost of our cruise, but not the total cost of our trip. So let's talk about Vancouver. So let's talk about extra costs that are not necessarily connected to the cruise directly that you want to make sure that you consider. First of all, we spent 2 days in Vancouver. So we had 2 hotel stays, one on the way into Vancouver before the cruise and one on the way out of Vancouver on the way home. So 2 hotel nights in Vancouver, and then all the things that we did in Vancouver while we were there. We went to the aquarium. We, for a family of 4 today, it cost us about $100, no matter which way you slice it, to eat out. And when you're on vacation and eating at hotels, we definitely wanted to make sure that we could do that in Vancouver. So those costs added up as well. But let me tell you about this blunder that happened, that if we were on a budget trying to plan our dream vacation, I don't know if we would have actually ended up making it to Alaska at all. 3 days before the flight to Vancouver, it's international travel, and I've got 2 kiddos, myself and my husband. My husband got his passport, I had my passport, and my 12-year-old has his passport. My 15-year-old got his passport in 2018, I want to say. Yes, it was 2018 before we went to the Bahamas. So I opened up his passport, and I realized 3 days before our international flight to Vancouver that his passport expired. What the fuck? I didn't realize at the time that kids' passports only last 5 years. So I was assuming that because we got our passports at the same time, that his passport was going to be good to go. And it wasn't, which could have ended the trip for us because we weren't going to be able to get him a passport, even expedited, in the amount of time that we needed to get on the plane. So we talked to who we could talk to, we did our research, and we realized that he was not going to be able to take the flight to Vancouver. And we weren't willing to let that stop us, even though there were a ton of extra costs that came with it. We had to then backtrack our flight because we could only get to Canada through the border, through ground transportation. That was going to be train, bus, or private transportation. We had to rebook our flights to Seattle. We were on an international airline that we weren't able to change the flight on the way to Vancouver. So we ended up having to eat that flight cost because they were non-transferable, non-exchangeable, non-refundable tickets. Our loss, our learning. And we rebooked flights to Seattle. And then we were in a conversation about how we were going to get from Seattle to Vancouver. My husband was not willing at that point. It was going to be a really long day with the boys. He really didn't want to go on the cheap and take a train, which we could have done, take a train to Vancouver. Instead, we decided to take a private car from Seattle to Vancouver for 2 reasons. One, it was going to be really late at night by the time we were getting in. We were going into a foreign country, didn't really know our way around, and we wanted to make sure we did it safely. Second reason is that you can't rent a car and drive across the border. They don't let you do that for just a day. And we didn't want to dock a car for a whole week and pay for it for a car we weren't using in a foreign country either. So we decided to take a private car, which was amazing. It was $1,100. It wasn't the cheapest route, but it was definitely the best route for us. We had a comfortable ride into Vancouver, pretty stress-free. They picked us up at the airport. They got us to the hotel. And that was the least stressful way that we decided we wanted to do that. On the way home, because we were traveling during the day, we decided to book a train, and we lucked out that it was actually a bus, which was a beautiful ride from Vancouver to Seattle, got across the border just fine. But that whole snafu, shall we say, cost us about $3,000. Now, if we were trying to be really tight, and if we didn't have our money planned and saved, and I'll tell you how we were able to manage those extra costs at the end of this video, we probably would have had to cancel the trip. And that would have really been horrible for us. We were so looking forward to it. This was a dream vacation. $3,000 didn't make us or break us. I'm so, so grateful for that. And I just want you to know that if you're planning your dream vacation, some of these things are going to happen. You cannot plan for absolutely everything. And I've got families who travel abroad who have medical emergencies that you just can't plan for everything. So you've got to make sure that you've got extra money saved, that you've got your finances handled in a way that you can absorb these extra costs so that you're not stressed out to the max when it comes to your money on a dream vacation. So that's just a heads up for you. So for our stay in Vancouver, for our extra travel, all the things, including all of the costs that I just, that at the early, front end of this video that I shared with you about our trip to Alaska, the total cost of our trip was $19,000, rounded up to 20 because there's some cash in here that we spent and other kinds of travel that we spent. I'm going to give you a breakdown of all of these things at the end of the video. But I just feel like it's really important for me to be open and honest with you about all the ways that my household spends money and the way that we plan our vacations, because budgeting will only get you so far in your life. And for so many people who are on a tight budget, I also want you to hear today that you can enjoy your life. And for those of you who are really good at budgeting, it's likely you do have money set aside for these things, but the actual thought of spending your money makes you feel really it gives you a lot of anxiety or fear. And I want you to know today that my family doesn't make millions and millions of dollars. I'm still growing my company today. I'm making great money in my company, and my husband makes pretty good money too, but we're not millionaires yet. And we were still able to make this happen because it was so important to us. And we had total clarity of where our money was. So next, let me tell you about the ways that we were able to afford this total trip. So I knew last year that my family and we were going to be taking an Alaskan cruise. Now, the cheap chip in me really thought that we probably should have put it off a year from now. And my husband was like, babe, if not now, when? He's definitely the spender in the relationship. And I love that so much about him because he stretches me outside my comfort zone to do things that I normally wouldn't do. The saver in me was like, we got to put this off another year and make sure we have all of the money. But you know what? It all worked out. And here's why. I was talking about this at the front end of the video. Every month, I put money aside into different buckets. Two of those buckets are my husband and I's, our Roth IRAs. And if you don't know how a Roth IRA works, I'm not gonna spend this time to explain all of it to you. But high level, I look at my Roth IRA as long-term money, but also I know if I need it, I can take it out and not have any penalty or taxes. So that's always in my back pocket. For those extra expenses, especially the extra $3,000 that we spent, I could have spent time in a conversation of, we can't make this happen. There's no way, because the actual money wasn't in our checking account or our household savings account, but we did have it. And so it was just time for me to look at all of the money that we had available to us to make it happen. Not only do we save into our Roth IRAs every month, but we save into a household emergency reserve every single month. And that money is just set aside. We've got 3 dogs for emergencies, whatever. So I have that money to pull from if I need it to as well. I also save into my son's accounts. My sons have 2 accounts that we send money over to every single month. So if I was just looking at my household checking account, my household savings account, it may look like I don't have the money to do the things that I want to do, but that's all about mindset. Where there's a will, there's a way. And because I'm such a savvy saver most of the time, all of that money is set aside in a way where I know I can access it if I needed to. And then I just got to have a conversation with myself and my husband about what was negotiable. The other thing is with the cruise is I knew ahead of time enough what the costs were going to be. So I put a lot of those charges and expenses on a 0% credit card. I have money in a savings account, but if I can put it on a 0% card and then every single month just pay off a little chunk of it at a time, it made it a whole lot more manageable. It didn't feel like I was taking $20,000 of savings out for this trip. We've used and managed our cash flow in the household, some savings accounts, and some 0% credit cards to help us fund this total trip. That was super helpful the morning that we were traveling to Vancouver and realized we weren't going to be able to fly internationally, for me to go, you know what, babe, we'll figure it out when we get home. I put it on a credit card, which I knew we had availability for. And then I got home, looked at all my funds, transferred what I needed to transfer, and the trips paid off. So for those of you today for you specifically today, who's thinking about your dream vacation and what it's going to cost for you to get there, I really hope that everything that I shared with you in this video is hopeful for you and helpful for you to think about what could be possible, what might be the money that you want to spend on a trip like this. And I'm here to answer any questions. All right, so let me give you a total rundown of all of the expenses that we had for this dream cruise to Alaska. I have to say, there were some parts of it that were stressful. I'm like, because my husband's a spender and I'm a savior, because I'm a saver and my husband's a spender, we had some conflict and disagreement about how money was going to be spent, but I didn't let that stop me because we're okay. We're okay. And like I said, we're not millionaires yet. Like, I'm still building my business. We make great money. I'm a good steward of making sure that things move where they need to move on a regular basis so that money's there when we need it. But I looked at all the resources that we had available as a family and I was like, you know what? This is the year that we're going to Alaska. I'm not promoting irresponsible financial behavior. What I'm telling you is that where there's a will, there's a way. And by embracing the systems that I teach in my world, I can teach you how to save to spend. I can teach you how to save for the big picture. You don't need a budget to do that. You can stop budgeting. You can build wealth. You can spend guilt-free. And this Alaska trip is a perfect example of how my family has been able to do that. And we're loving our lives. So let's do a recap of what this trip cost us. First, you've got the actual cruise that was $7,500. And just remember, this is rounded up, okay? To like the nearest $100, okay? So you've got the actual cruise. I will mention, which I didn't mention at the front end, is that we went concierge class and it was amazing. In the concierge class, we had private balconies on the back of the boat. So for those of us who get motion sickness, it was really great to be able to look out at the back end of the boat and be in motion with the boat versus on the side of the boat. That can be a little disorienting. That was awesome. We also had our own concierge on our floor. So every time we came out of our room, he was there. Amir, shout out to Amir. He was amazing. Like, good morning. What do you need? We had this snafu with our keys. He helped us with that. And so the concierge class for us, we had a private balcony or helicopter tour going into Ketchikan. Nice little touches that we were able to take advantage of because we chose the concierge class. We didn't want to go cheap on that either. $7,500 for the cruise. And then we had our flights, our first round of flights to Vancouver, which was $1,400 there and back to Vancouver and home. And then we had the beverage packages that we chose into. So one was $600, one was $750. Total beverages for the four of us for the cruise was $1,350. Then we had our two excursions, which was $1,400, $800 for Juneau, and $600 for Ketchikan. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. I don't know if my family and I will ever get back to Alaska in this way, and my boys are growing so fast. Every dollar we spent and every memory we made was totally worth it. Then we had Vancouver. So we had 2 nights in a hotel in Vancouver. We had 2 nights of dinner in Vancouver. We went to the Vancouver Aquarium. We had gifts and sundries and other kinds of things and gratuities. Don't forget that as a part of the ship as well. They add gratuity onto the things that you do. We had travel, and then we had our extra travel blunder. So I'm coming in for our total Vancouver trip at about $1,680, not including travel. So you'll see that in this lineup as everything adds up. And then I have some Ubers and cabs. You had to take a cab to the port or an Uber for transportation to the airport and whatnot. That's in there at $150. And then we had our travel blunder to Seattle through Vancouver, and that's in here as well. So we had a train, we had a private transportation, and we had our flights to Seattle, and that was a total of $3,000. So all in, our trip cost us about $19,000. And like I said, these memories we're going to have the rest of our lives. I got it paid for within the first week of us being home, and I'm so glad that we did it. I wish you travels. I wish you memories in abundance. I wish you opportunities like these to take your families places that you've always wanted to go. And I hope that today this conversation enlightened you on all of the ways that you can make that happen. And I'm so grateful for you tuning in today to hear about my family's dream trip to Alaska. We'll catch you next time.